Well, hello, and welcome to episode 130 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, story goes, if you ask Steven Spielberg what his favorite film of all time is, he will say Lawrence of Arabia. We got to watch this for the episode this week, and I have to say, pretty good pick, Steven Spielberg. So, what do you think, Lawrence of Arabia? Steven's favorite, maybe our favorite going forward. I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly my friend Mick Collins' favorite. He kept going on and on about this one scene that I had not seen before because I hadn't watched the movie. I dare say I had never watched this before. So I felt like this was an educational experience for me, not only in terms of cinematic legendariness, but also in history, because I was like, what is happening? When is this set? I'm so confused. So that was really good for me. Yeah, pretty long film. So I really expected it to be epic and grand and sweeping. And I have to say it was all of those things. And
Yes.
with the piercing blue eyes of Peter O'Toole in the cadence and the way he delivers his lines like no one else could. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
That's right. It is epic. It is long, and those eyes are blue. You are correct about that, Michaela. Absolutely. And this is a classic movie by all accounts, and we're going to need a classic cocktail to pair with it. One that really, gets into the tone of Lawrence of Arabia. What's going on out there in the desert? So let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to mix up this week's classic cocktail.
So as I said, this is a historical piece of art, not only in terms of the cinematic realm, because of all of the things, that it did for the theater and movies in general at the time, but this is a historic, it's based on a true story. It's based on things that really happened. It's and to pay homage to that, and also the fact that there's lots of blood and lots of sand in this, we decided to go with a classic cocktail. Now, I did not know the history of the blood and sand cocktail, but you did, Brian. You knew, as soon as I mentioned it.
That's right. Yeah, you put it on there on our list of movies and cocktail pairings to get into the blood and sand for this, and I'm like, that's very interesting, Michaela, because that is a classic cocktail. I don't know if you knew that it was a classic cocktail, or you just saw the name and said that sounds right. Let's do that. But the blood and sand, it first appeared in the very seminal cocktail work, which is the Savoy cocktail book from that Savoy hotel there in London. If you ever have the chance to go and have a cocktail there, I recommend go and do that. But it's a lovely place and a lovely cocktail book. And this is one of the classics. Apparently, this was made for another movie, some bullfighting movie that I can't remember the name of right now, but it pairs perfectly with this week's film, Lawrence of Arabia, because yeah, blood and sand doesn't get more on the nose than that for our story here today. So let's mix up one of these real quick, Michaela. It's pretty simple, equal parts cocktail, which are always my favorites because you don't have a lot to remember. So here we go. It's going to be 3/4 of an ounce of blended scotch, 3/4 of an ounce of blood orange juice, 3/4 of an ounce of a sweet vermouth, and 3/4 of an ounce of cherry heering. Cherry heering is like a cherry brandy. Basically, it's a brandy made out of cherries. It's very umptious. It's very kind of thick and velvety, very cherry-y, really delicious. So equal parts of all those. I like to put mine into like a cocktail shaker with some ice, give it a stir, and then strain it over over a rocks glass with like a large ice cube in there. And then you can go ahead and garnish that with an orange peel and sip and enjoy your travel across the desert.
That's right. Now I gotta say, there's not a lot of water in this drink. There's no water in this cocktail except for the big chunk of ice.
There's not a lot of water in the movie either.
That's true. Fair. That's true. But I have to say, when you're dying of thirst in the middle of the desert, trying to help the Arab tribes come together instead of tear each other apart, this could definitely be something that wins wars. I feel like it's very smooth. The blood orange gives it a really nice sweetness. Obviously, it's kind of tart as well. The sweet vermouth, this threw me through a loop. I thought I was going to hate this cocktail because I love sweet vermouth, but I did not see it in my head pairing very well with blood orange and blended scotch at all. But it comes together so well. And I'd never seen cherry hearing, so I was really glad that the liquor store totally knew what I was talking about when I asked for it, because I had never seen or heard of it in my life. So this came together really easy, and I agree with you. It's one of those where, you know, you're going to have one and you're going to have a second, and then maybe in your third, you're going to be really glad that it's equal parts of everything, because you can make it as big or as small as you'd like.
That's right. Absolutely. So, mix one of these up. It's pretty delicious. I will say, I guess, kind of my own kind of takeaways on it. I really like kind of the flavor combinations, but I thought that the sweet vermouth was just a little bit too, I don't know, kind of unctuous. It made everything a little bit too one note. So I maybe dialed that back a little bit if I was going to make up another one of these just for my own self. But definitely do this, and definitely try it this way, because this is the classic way to do it from that Savoy cocktail book. And, go ahead and sip and enjoy this while you're watching this classic Lawrence of Arabia. It's going to get you in the mood for all of the adventures that we're about to go on. So I don't know. That is the Blood and Sand, Michaela. Pretty good. So let us know at home if you make up one of these, and send us pictures, all that good stuff. But for now, we've got to get into a movie, and it's a lengthy one, so we might have a lot of ground to cover. I'm not 100% sure, but we're going to talk about all that. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to chat about this week's film, Lawrence of Arabia.
Spoiler warning for Lawrence of Arabia. If you've not yet seen this 3 hour and 40 some odd minute film, and you don't want to know what happens, then you should press pause now. You should go make yourself up an amazing Blood and Sand, and then you should watch the film, and we'll see you next year. You press unpause, and we can continue this conversation. We're going to talk about all the things. I mean, I say that, but it's 3 hours and 40 minutes long, so we're probably going to miss over some things, and I'm sorry for everybody whose favorite movie this is, but we're going to do our best. Yeah. Be easy on us.
Yeah, I feel like we always have to put a disclaimer when we're covering something that is going to be, everyone's, a lot of people's favorite films, because I don't feel like we're going to do it justice, but we're going to do our best here with Lawrence of Arabia. So this came out in 1962. It was directed by David Lean, and it stars Peter O'Toole as Lawrence himself, Omar Sharif as Sharif Ali, Alec Guinness as Prince Faisal, and Anthony Quinn as Auda Abu Tayi. So Michaela, this is a big deal. Lawrence of Arabia was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, won 7, but lost 3. So it lost the best actor and supporting actor for O'Toole and Sharif, and it also lost best adapted screenplay. But it did win 7, so 7 is not too shabby. So it won best score, best sound, best film editing, best color set direction, best color cinematography, obviously, and it won best director. And Best Picture. Now, this has the honor of being the longest Best Picture winner of all time. I think it ekes out Sound of Music by like 1 minute or something. So I read a bunch of places where it made sure to point that out. So good job, Lawrence of Arabia. But 7 Academy Awards, that's pretty good.
That is pretty good. James Cameron, if you're listening, please don't take that as like a thing you need to do.
Challenge accepted.
All right. We don't need Avatar 3 to be like 85 hours long. Please don't do that to us. But it's not surprising that it won all these awards, having looked at it and seen it now. I remember growing up seeing certain scenes in a film school study I did. There were a couple of things around art design and set direction or set design that were really special in this film. Certainly all the big long sweeping shots, and so it's famous. Its reputation precedes itself as being this amazing epic movie. And I don't know how I feel about losing best supporting actor and adapted screenplay. I'd love to see I'd like to read what it was adapted from, which was a story that was actually written by Lawrence of Arabia himself. And so I think I would need to do that to see how well that kind of took to the screen, as it were. But I thought Peter O'Toole was amazing, and Omar Sharif, I mean, oh my gosh, this is the man who would become the Dr. Zhivago, that was also directed by David Lean. So, I mean, it's like epicness upon epicness here, right?
That's right. Yeah, it is epic upon epic, and I probably should have put this in the first part where I was running through the people that were starring in this thing. The other star of this film is the Super Panavision 70 camera that they were using, because they definitely make a point to point out that that's what they're using for this. And I mean, even kind of this very first image. So the movie starts and you get like 4 minutes of a black screen, and I'm totally looking on my phone like, is this supposed to be a black screen for these 4 minutes? Not 100% sure. Did HBO mess up? I don't know, but turns out that is supposed to be. And then it opens on this crazy weird angle shot of this motorcycle from the top down. It looks really, really cool, and you're like, what is happening? But we see a gentleman getting on this motorcycle, going faster and faster, crashes into some shrubs when some bicycles or something come by, and boom, we get the movie started. As it turns out, that was T.E. Lawrence dying in this motorcycle accident. We go to his funeral, which is being held at St. Paul's Cathedral. He's being kind of enshrined there, right? There's like a statue of him, and then there's some like journalists running around trying to get everyone's kind of opinion and statements about T.E. Lawrence. And it turns out that not a lot of people really knew all that much about him. They knew that he was a quirky guy. They knew that he did some pretty amazing stuff, I guess, for Crown and Country down in Arabia. And that's all we really know about him. But we're about to learn a lot more about this guy.
Yeah, no, and it's important. I'm totally going to probably butcher this part, but so I'm getting a little bit of help from Wikipedia, which is a great resource for anybody. Give them money every year, please, everybody. So this took place in the First World War, which is a few years, quite a few years before he dies in this motorcycle accident. And he is in this, Lawrence is in this British Army. He's a lieutenant. And what I love about these opening scenes is he acts very strange. So the actual actor of Peter O'Toole, I don't know how tall he was. I think he was like 6'4". He's really tall. And what you see is in some of these shots, how he kind of, he just rises above the entire crowd. And he's not menacing in any way, but he is definitely what we would consider a misfit. Like, he's really well educated. He spoke a lot of languages. They talk about how smart he is, but he's just not really, he's not very respectful. He's pretty insolent. He makes a lot of kind of wry comments to his commanders and to his fellow officers, and he's not well liked, particularly amongst people. And I love how in all of the scenes where he's in this military kind of uniform, he looks incredibly uncomfortable. Like he doesn't feel good in his own skin. And it's almost annoying when you first see it, because you're like, what is happening? Why is he so, is everything really itchy? He's not even in the desert yet. What is going on? But I feel like he did a really good job of letting us know through his actions and decisions he made as an actor that this character was outside of himself in this part of his life. This is not where he felt he was home.
Yeah, he was definitely out of place there. You got the feeling in the army, and then as it goes through the film, we'll see him back kind of in that uniform a few more times, and every time he's in it, he's a little bit more disheveled and a little bit more uncomfortable looking, as he's kind of making this transition through the film of being Lawrence of the lieutenant in the British Army to being Lawrence of Arabia, as he's kind of making that transition. And that's pretty much what this film is about. So basically they're there at the army offices. They're trying to figure out if they can get T. Lawrence over into the Middle East to talk to Prince Faisal, who's played by Alec Guinness, to see if they can go and they can kind of get this tribe out of there. That's who the British are working with during the course of kind of this First World War to establish, I guess that front as part of the war, and to take on the Turkish army there. So that's kind of why he gets sent there in the first place. Now I like the army guys. Like, he's like, nah, this guy over here, T.E. Lawrence, he doesn't know what he's doing, but definitely don't want to send him down there. He's not going to be able to do that because he can barely get his shoes tied right or something, because like you said, he's kind of this quirky dude that doesn't really fit in with anyone. But they end up getting him down there, and it turns out that maybe this is where Lawrence was meant to be. This is where Lawrence can go and thrive and lead the way.
That's right. I love the bleakness that we see in the first couple of shots of the desert journey. He has Lawrence has this Bedouin guide. His name is Tafas, and he is telling him, hey, you should drink. And of course, Lawrence is like, I'll drink when you drink. And he's like, yeah, but I'm Bedouin. Like, I do this all day long. And you're like this really, really fair-skinned dude. You're going to die out here if you don't listen to me. And he's like, whatever, man. And so they go, and there's nothing except this rocky, like, hole, which is actually a well. And this is amazing that it even exists, right? This is why, one of the reasons I think why it won all the awards that it did, because this looks absolutely ludicrous to me that there is nothing for miles except this hole in the ground. And they're like drinking out of this bag of water. And then far off in the distance, it's one of my favorite scenes of this whole movie. Far off in the distance, you see Tafas he's on his camel, and he looks out, and there's this weird black speck, and you don't know what it is. And I mean, this scene probably takes a couple of minutes for that black speck to come into focus, because it's looking out over the mirage of the desert. And so you don't know what it is. You don't know if it's a person on a horse. You don't know if it's a car. You don't have any idea what it is. And it turns out to be Omar Sharif's character, played by, that's his person. His name is Sharif Ali Ben El Karish. And he is like, hey, this is my well. You don't have permission to be drinking from this well. I don't know how he saw that they were drinking from his well, because we literally only saw like the speck on the horizon. But he gets really mad, and he ends up killing Tafas, which of course makes Lawrence really angry. He's like, that's my friend. And he was like, that person was not your friend at all. And this is my well. So
yeah, this scene is fantastic, and you made a really good point, because I'm watching this and they're at this well, and it looks like it must be some sort of matte painting in behind it, because there is nothing for like literal like hundreds of miles in behind it. And then you see this figure coming up, and then I'm watching it like, with the lens of the last, I don't know, 60 years of time, and I'm like, are they painting that image in? What's going on? But no, as it turns out, it's just a really real person, and they just really filmed it for, I don't know, it had to have been like 2 hours of this person walking that distance, or coming up on the camel that distance. And yeah, it really kind of paints the picture here, and it illustrates to Lawrence why this is important and why this job is going to be so hard, right? Because Sharif Ali, shoots that guy for drinking out of his well, because he is a person that he said was quote unquote dirty, because he was from this other Arab tribe that he didn't respect and didn't want him drinking from his well. And he's like, no, you're a visitor here, Lawrence. You can drink from the well. I don't care, but I don't want that other guy to, because he's from kind of this rival tribe. And it sets Lawrence aback a little bit. Sharif says, so you can come with me. I'll take you to the prince, but Lawrence is like, I don't want to go with you. You're crazy. You just rode your camel like 100 miles to shoot that guy like an insane person. I'm not going with you. I'll be fine on my own. He's like, all right, whatever, dude. You're on your own then. I'll see you out here in the desert someday when I'm riding by, because you'll be dead on arrival. But Lawrence goes off on his own, and he makes his way to Prince Faisal's little encampment.
Yeah. And Prince Faisal is played by the amazing Alec Guinness. He does a really good job. I think Alec Guinness kind of emotes this, kingly presence, but also seems very wise. He's very calm. And
he seems Colonel kind of Brighton, mischievous, I thought. Mischievous is how I would describe him.
Kind of seeing what he could see, right? Like what could he do here? And they're fighting kind of about where this group of Arabic tribes are going to go, right? Where are the people going to go? And Colonel Brighton is there, and Colonel Brighton has absolutely no respect for Lawrence. He is telling Prince Faisal, hey, you guys, you and your group, you all need to move back to Kenbo. You guys need to fall back. You've just had a devastating loss. And one thing about that scene, so they kind of come up on Lawrence kind of comes up right after this devastating loss, and you see Prince Faisal riding around on his camel, and then he looks down and realizes that he's holding a sword and they've just been bombed. Like, he's got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that they're going to defend against these giant bombs that are being dropped on them. And so he's really in a moment of desperation when Lawrence is kind of brought into this meeting room where he's saying, I don't really want to move back and fall back and do that. But Colonel Brighton's like, hey, you don't have a choice. But of course, Lawrence, he's not want to keep his mouth shut, even when he thinks it probably would be good for his career if he did. And he says, hey, I think we should actually move forward. There's another town, Aqaba. We should do an attack on Aqaba because the Turks are there now, and they would never expect us to move forward there. And of course, Colonel Brighton's like, you're nuts. I'd be quiet. I mean, he just basically orders him to leave the tent. But it speaks to Prince Faisal. He sees this spirit in him, and it piques his interest for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of this section where they're being attacked at this encampment is absolutely insane, right? You mentioned that he has a sword and they're, dropping bombs on him. There are like these fighter planes, these biplanes coming in, like literally flying like 20 feet over these people's heads. I don't know how they filmed it. I don't know. You couldn't film it today because it's got to be dangerous as all heck to do this. No way they're letting that happen.
Oh yeah.
So it's absolutely insane. And yeah, they come in and basically Lawrence says, yeah, let's go. We'll go on this counterattack. We can sneak across the desert. They'll never know we're coming. They'll never know what hit them. They definitely won't be expecting us. Plus, that town is like a port town. That'll open it up to British ships. They can come in. They can bring you some supplies. That sounds pretty nice, right? Guy with sword against the guy with bombs. Wouldn't it be nice to get some of that action going on? And Prince Faisal says, okay, maybe here's 50 guys. Take 50 guys and see what you can do, because you're gonna die out in the middle of the desert. So whatever, you take these and go. And Lawrence says, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. So he gets there and he grabs his guys, gets them ready to go, and they set off on camelback across the desert, which looks hot and dry. And kind of this first section of the film is very slow. It is a lot of people moving across the desert, which on one hand you're like, okay, I get it, but on the other hand you're watching it and you're like, how far away did they have to set up these cameras to get these wide angle shots? How did they do this? This is unbelievable. Now, apparently this film, they say, costs about $15 million, which is like $160 million today. But I don't even know how you can make this today with $160 million. There's no way. I don't understand how they did it. The scope of especially this first section where, kind of this first like half of the movie roughly is kind of like the voyage, the journey of Lawrence, to kind of reunite these tribes and things like that. But it's unbelievable. I don't know where you go and you get 50 camels. I don't know where you go and keep them all in order. There's this really beautiful shot as they're going across the desert, and they finally are like, maybe we're going to start going at night. So you see them during the day and you just see like these 50 camels just on screen, just like knelt down and people are laying next to them. It looks unreal. It looks fake. It's so amazing. Right. I don't understand it.
Exactly. And when you think about this, was 60 years before like CGI. Like,
right.
Well,
yeah.
40 years at least, right? Before.
Yeah. Now you'd have one camel and you'd hit copy paste and you'd paste in 49 more camels. But no. It's amazing.
And the sweeping kind of, it's tough because I think that people who are young, unless they really have an appreciation for the art form that was created by making this film, that's gonna be lost on them, because it looks so amazing. You think, oh, it's fake, but it decidedly not. This was back in the day when they had thousands of extras and hundreds of camels, and all of the shots are real. Like the planes were real, the bombs that they were dropping, they were stunts, but they were real. It was live action that was shot with a camera and then had to be reset if something went wrong. And some of these shots are just so sweeping and so wide, and they cover so many miles because of the vastness of where this is taking place in the desert. They had to make sure that everything was clean. You couldn't, if you saw anything in the background you weren't supposed to see, they'd have to reset. I mean, looking at on top of the fact that apparently they didn't even have a finished script when they were doing most of this. I mean, it's a miracle that this thing was made as well as it was anyway. But to make it so believable and amazing in these shots when you're picturing the journey is just it's why it's so epic.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're traveling across the desert. This group of 50 people with Lawrence there. They're going into this place called the Sun's Anvil, which sounds like the place that you don't want to go, for sure. It sounds like a real terrible place to be. And that's where they're going. That's where they're going across. And basically, Sharif Ali is telling Lawrence, he's like, listen, he's like, we're going to go across this thing. We're probably going to die. But if we make it across it, there's some water on the other side. Maybe we make it, maybe we don't. And that's where we're going. Now there's one of the guys gets separated from the group that's traveling. And Lawrence says, we got to turn around and go back for him. Everyone else says, no, remember, this is called the Sun's Anvil. This isn't the place where we turn around and go back for people. We're going forward. So Lawrence is kind of left to his own devices, and he turns around, goes back and gets them. And that's really what kind of cements him then as the leader of this group of men. They're like, oh, okay, maybe you're just not some blowhard from England that's coming down telling us what to do. You're not some traveler through the land. Maybe you are, respectful of us and respectful of how dangerous this is for us to be out here and to be going on this mission with you. So it really kind of, solidifies him as the leader of this group and really kind of rises him to a position then to go on and kind of accumulate and work with these other Arab tribes to go on and, pursue and go up to battle, the Turkish tribes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right after he goes back for Qasim, they give him this beautiful kind of these white robes to wear. He meets, apparently well ownership is like a thing when you have a desert. And there's not a whole lot of water. So Lawrence actually meets the well owner of the place on the other side of the Devil's Anvil, Auda Abu Tai. He is a leader of a Hawiyatat tribe. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And he persuades him. At first, this Auda guy, he really just wants money. He's like, look, I get paid. And of course, the other tribe is like, yeah, you're dirty because you get paid and you're not doing this for honor. And so there's all this infighting. And Lawrence has a really great way of explaining and persuading Auda to take all of his men and join with the group that he has of 50 men to go and overrun the Turkish garrison, right? He says, hey, you don't actually need the money. You do things because you want to. And he appeals to his ego, but also appeals to the fact that he's like, look, I don't know if you've met the British, but we have a lot more money than 100 ducats a day or whatever he's getting by continuing to just stay where he is, right? He's like, look, abandon this well, come with us. Trust me, you're going to get like 100 times more than you ever thought possible.
Yeah.
British pockets are pretty deep.
Yeah, I really love Lawrence says, I forget what the exact line is. He's like, they take that much out of a box that they don't even know how much is in every day. And I really love kind of that sentiment, right? Because he thought he was doing pretty well for himself. But yeah, then when they do get there and they take over that town, I like Lawrence kind of takes out this ledger and he's like, the British government owes this guy, like 15,000 or whatever, which I thought was pretty amazing. But moral of the story is good job. Job done here for Lawrence. He gets a nice promotion, and they say that was pretty good. Why don't you keep going? You seem to be have a knack for doing this thing. Maybe you should head up and you can maybe try to run off the Ottoman Empire. See what else you can do for us, Lawrence. What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, and this is where I feel like Lawrence has this really veiled conversation with his superior, this guy General Allenby, who everybody thinks is not on the up and up. He's kind of a slippery general, and he's like, "Yeah, you're going to go back. We're promoting you to major. This is awesome." And Lawrence is like, "Look, I can get these Arab tribes to come together, but they're going to want to come together and be their own state, be their own group, be their own people. Am I doing this because you guys are just going to, run them out once they, take care of all the Turks? And of course, Allenby is like, no, we would never do that. Absolutely not. They can have whatever. And of course, as soon as Lawrence leaves, the three men are like walking down the street and they're like, man, that poor guy, he's an idiot. Like he really believes that like he's going to go and be able to do this. And which is a shame. So, but Lawrence, he's a smart guy. He launches this kind of guerrilla warfare. There's this Ottoman railway that he goes, and for anybody that didn't know, I didn't know either until I looked at a map, but that's a railroad between a city called Medina and Damascus, which is like this, it's not Mecca, but it's a city that the prince's tribe has always wanted to call their own, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that Lawrence has promised that group of people, that if we can get to Damascus, I can give it to you and it can be yours. And so there's this railroad in between those two cities, and Lawrence has started setting bombs off, and right when a train is coming over. And so there's this really gnarly scene, I think for 1962, of this train wreck, and there's like a lot of dead people and their soldiers, and of course everyone's raiding the finery that's in some of these dining boxes and things. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, one of Lawrence's kind of friends, I guess they're servants, his name is Faraj, he gets hurt trying to put together the bomb. One of the explosives goes off, and the thing that is made very clear in this part of the movie is that they have a lot more dead than injured, because if you are injured so gravely that they can't take you with them, they just shoot you, because they would rather you die that way. And I guess everybody agrees to this, so they're not, but they would rather you be killed by people who are part of your tribe, who are part of your group, than leave you to the enemy, who are certainly going to torture you and probably kill you anyway.
Right. Yeah. And there's a couple of lessons to be learned here. With the railway explosion and the train, it comes off the tracks, and it's spilling out its treasure, and basically all of the people that were following Lawrence are there kind of looting the stuff from the train that's come off. And some of the other British officers there are like, oh, if they're looting, that basically makes them thieves. And Lawrence is like, well, they don't get paid a weekly salary like you guy, right? This is their pay for doing this job,
right?
Basically, is that. But you also it's kind of this you start to see kind of this transition within Lawrence himself, where he's starting to get a little I don't even know how to describe it. It's not like a god complex, but he's very much kind of buying into his own myth right now, whereas he's really the kind of leader of this. And I think it's not like a power hungry thing, but it's starting to get a little heady, I think, for Lawrence here as we're going, and he's kind of seen as this chosen one that's uniting these tribes. I think it's a very, very kind of akin to like Apocalypse Now, right, where a man gets so much power, and you start to see that. At least that's kind of the takeaway that I saw for Lawrence's actions, kind of from here on out through the rest of the film, really.
Yeah. I mean, he gets kind of wounded, and then he's like, "Oh, don't you know bullets bounce off of me, or I can only be killed by a golden bullet," or something like that. I mean, he's just very. I remember him. There's a scene where he actually is yelling at Sharif and saying, "I'm not just anybody. You don't understand. Like, I can tell people to do anything and they will for me." And on one hand, that's really great, because he is pushing these people to go further than they ever thought possible by banding together and doing that. On the other hand, he is human, and humans are mortal, and they're destined to trip up at some point. And that's what happens. They go to a city called Dara, Lawrence and Ali, and Lawrence is taken. He thinks that he's really kind of cocky, walking down the street. I mean, he's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person, and he's in like the Arab robes, but he's like walking down the middle of the street. He's refusing to move when people are coming by or getting behind him in cars. He's not actively trying to fit in that much. And he's like, oh, it's fine. We're invisible. And we're not invisible. He gets taken prisoner and he goes into this Turkish area, this cell, and he's stripped down. And this I guess the leader is called the Bey. And the Bey is really, I don't know, it gets very dark. And again, there's no CGI. So you just have this real tension around what they're going to do to him. And you think it's and they flog him. So they whip him. And it's not super graphic, but it's still pretty upsetting to watch because you're like, man, they could do anything to this guy, Lawrence, right?
Yeah, I feel like this was probably about as graphic as 1962 would allow for sure. And yeah, it's a kind of really kind of pointed scene. I really I kind of like the way that it looked, right, as the guy, I don't know, the head of like the Turkish army or whatever, it kind of goes and walks through the door, but leaves the door ajar so he can come back in and watch as Lawrence is being, caned and stuff there. It's really very, very chilling. And, you read a lot into the scene without being shown a lot, which I think is, one of the kind of the brilliant things of this film for sure is, there's a lot implied in the way that these things are shown. But, Lawrence gets out of there. They basically, they don't have anything else they can glean from him. So they chuck him out into the streets and, Ali gets him and, Lawrence goes back. He says, okay, so I've done this. We blew up the train. There's nothing more that I can do. He's pretty shook from this experience of being captured. He's realized that maybe he's not the almighty, powerful, need a golden bullet to get. So maybe you just need to get captured and caned a bit. And then you're going to say, you know what? I would like to go and have a regular job. Can I go home and work at a desk and write up some reports or something? And the British Army says,
PTS reports.
Yeah, they're like, no, you're still pretty good at this. So what we need you to do now, let's get you back out there. We can go. You can get in, make one kind of final push, and I think really that's where you see kind of Lawrence kind of snap in this sort of section here. This last when he's put out, kind of he's asked for some relenting on himself, right? It's pushed him physically, it's pushed him mentally, and he gets pushed back out there for one last hurrah. And you kind of see where he's met his limit on this.
Yeah. So they say, hey, look, this General Allenby, who's played beautifully because I hate this guy. He's like, hey, he's in Jerusalem, and he's like, hey, we're gonna meet you in Damascus. We're gonna. The British army is going to take on Damascus, and Lawrence is like, yeah, okay. So he recruits an army. It's some of the same group that was before. Ali is with him. But then there's quite a few that he's paying. And of course, there's a big debate between him and Ali around that. He says, look, some of them are fighting because they believe in this, and some of them are just getting paid. I don't know if that's a great idea. But there is as they're making their way to Damascus, they come upon a really awful massacred city called Tafas. And again, it's 1962, but it looks real bad. I mean, this really is a perfect example to me of a way to tell this story and have it. The awfulness is not lost on us, but it is not gratuitously violent. Because there's plenty of blood, but there's not, there's nothing that we would see now with this war gore that we would see like in other war-torn movies where there's just extra kind of violence on top of violence, right?
Right.
And the fact that this is a town and there are women. I mean, I think it's mostly women that we're seeing kind of splayed out. Again, it's 1962. There's no nudity, nothing like that. It's just horrible. And it doesn't have to be, we don't have to see flesh flying and arms and appendages all over the place to understand the horribleness of it. And so that's one of the things that I really gleaned from this is that Lawrence and all the men are just completely enraged that this is happening. And what's more, they keep going and they see this group of individuals that they're pretty sure did it. And so this, they all get together and they're really upset. and Ali is much more hesitant to join in and say, hey, let's take all these people down and let's kill them all. Because he knows that they probably want to save all their energy for the fight in Damascus, or to get to Damascus sooner.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really kind of very telling. And like I said, you see kind of this switch being flipped in Lawrence. I think throughout kind of the course of the film, as he's going further and further and buying more into his own press clippings, as it were, because quite literally, there's someone there documenting his journeys for the American newspapers, I guess, and taking his picture and putting all these headlines and things. There's some question on how accurate some of that stuff was there, but definitely pushing him. So then when you get kind of to this final section, this last kind of push into Damascus, and you have half of Lawrence's men are calling for them to go out and just kill all these people, no prisoners, and you have Sharif Ali, he's like that's not what we're about. That's not why we came here to do this. We came to reclaim our land, to establish our own society. That we're not here to just all out just kill all these people. That's not what we're here for. And you see it's kind of weighing on Lawrence as he screams to no prisoners, and they go out and they kill all these people. And then even like the newspaper guy was like, who are you and what have you become? And yeah, you kind of see that, and you see like almost this vacancy in Peter O'Toole's eyes as he's going through this final section. His bright blue eyes just almost have like this like deadness and behind him, because of kind of this journey that he's been on, and what it did to him in his own psyche and mind, as much as physically going through the desert. And I think that kind of characterization and the way that O'Toole plays it is just absolutely great. So that happens, the big massacre happens, and then they do end up making it to Damascus. They take over the city, and they're trying to get some things worked out, as it turns out. Getting these tribes to come together to go out and pursue an enemy, that's easier than getting them to sit down and try to be in charge of all of these things. And as it turns out, the government's probably not really going to let them be that much in charge of that anyway. The real victor of these spoils was Prince Faisal, of course, as it was always going to be in the first place. And where does that leave Lawrence? Right, job is done. Kind of the Arab area that the British were really interested in has been completed, so there's nothing left to do for Lawrence but to be put in a car and be sent home.
Yeah, but they're gonna make him a colonel first, so that's cool, right? That means he gets his own room on the boat that takes him home. I mean, I guess that's a big deal. I mean, Lawrence is so dejected by the in this scene, because he realizes that he's been kind of a pawn to this group of people for this time, versus he was not a god, but he was a true leader of these the people, that these Arab tribes that he brought together. And even though they respect him, they won't listen to him while they're trying to come to terms with who's going to rule this piece, and how do we talking about who's going to give who water, and how are we going to rule. Turns out that's a lot more difficult than overthrowing a city, is figuring out what to do then. And so, Lawrence is just completely dejected and brokenhearted. I think this is really awful and sad. And it's so understated. And me, I'm a drama queen. So I loved that they made the decision to understate this. The heartbreak that Lawrence feels as he's in the car and someone's trying to talk to him and say, "Oh, you're going home. That's so exciting." And he's just completely dead inside. And it's an amazing scene, because it's then when you see that he's now going home, and you realize that we're kind of at the beginning of the film, where what happened on that motorcycle at the beginning of the film, was it an accident? Because he's going real fast. Was it a choice he made? And you kind of make up your own mind about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he, as you mentioned, he gets promoted to colonel and sent home. And as they're driving, he's that guy's. It's so exciting. You get to go home, and they go by, a group of people that he probably was out traveling the desert with. They're on camelback as they go by, and you just see he kind of stands up in the car and just is looking at them longingly, like almost like that was the family he lost in a way, or that was the family. He probably felt that maybe he betrayed them in some sort of way from kind of the actions there at that massacre and stuff like that. So it's a lot of really, really great depth within the story of the character of T.E. Lawrence, and Peter O'Toole does an amazing job. So it would be interesting to go back and look to see who won that year, because I don't know how you top that, and just for how bright those blue eyes were alone, for sure. So that is Lawrence of Arabia. I feel like we got through it pretty good. We skimmed a bunch because this film is real long. It's you get through like the first like 2.5 hours before you even hit like the intermission mark. And the first half of the film is really, really slow. It's a lot of that moving around the desert, all of that beautiful shots. And I don't know, on one hand, you're sitting there at night watching it and you're like, let's pick up the pace a little bit, but it's so just breathtaking. And every time the camera moves, every time they're in a new location, you're just like dumbfounded as to how you were able to do this. How logistically could you do it? How could you afford to do it? How long did it take? How long did it take to drive everything out into the middle of the desert to set up every day? I don't understand. It's a phenomenal feat of movie making. It's mind blowing.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that, I'm trying to find data on exactly how long this took to film. Because again, they had script problems. So can you imagine where you're like, all right, we got to shoot this scene, and then we don't know what exactly we're going to say. Because the story, this, it was an adapted screenplay, but just all of the things that have to go into making to making these scenes and making them work. And then the editing job is also completely amazing to me because of the way in which it tells this story and the understated way. I keep saying that, but it's so classic. I mean, this is what people would think of when people now are talking about classic Hollywood, like epic movies. This is the film that one of the films that started that all, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it looks like the principal filming took about 1.5 years, and yeah, I mean, there's just so much of it. I mean, you have to, like I said, you have to find all these camels, and then you have to teach all these people how to ride camels, and then you have to say, oh, also we're going to film you having these dialogue pieces, or just literally film you for like hours just riding on this camel across the screen, because that's how long it's going to take you to get across. It's unbelievable, and the film itself is really, really good. Does it, is it too long? It's really hard to say, right? Was it too long in 1962? It's probably too long in 2023 because we have way short attention spans. We can only pay attention to like a 7-second TikTok. So how are we ever going to make it through a 4-hour film? But I don't know. Like I said, it's so gorgeous. It's worth that extra time and that extra buildup, and then the actual story and the way that they're kind of portraying it, and the acting in this is so believable, and how accurate it was to the actual T.E. Lawrence and his story and stuff is up for debates. You have if you look online, 50% of people say that it's really accurate, 50% of people say that it's not accurate at all. So who's to say for sure? But the way that they kind of capture these characters and the emotions, and just kind of the mental turmoil of going on this stretch of a mission had to have been for everyone is it's unbelievable. It's very good, and it's well worth the accolades and the reputation that it has.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope, I know they've remastered it. I really hope they do it again soon and get it out in theaters so that we can see it on the big screen. I mean, as you know, we both have pretty nice home theaters. So it looked good on both of our screens. However, I can't even imagine what this would be like in an IMAX or on the big screen in a movie theater. It would almost be worth that 20-minute or 15-minute intermission in the middle of it. Because at first, I have to say, even right after watching it, I was like, man, this was long. It was a long haul. but it's not a slog. I mean, it is a slow burn.
Mhm.
But if you love movies, I mean, I think that's really what the testament is. If you're willing to immerse yourself, this is one of the most immersive films in one of the most interesting places that as Americans, we don't, since for the last 20 some odd years, we have not done a lot of things from a film perspective to show off that area of the world. And so I think it's really important. And if you're willing to give it a shot, it's absolutely stunning and well worth your time to see. Just for the shots alone, but the story and the acting and the musical score is also incredible. There's a lot of scores out there that I think take their cue from this. In fact, I went and looked up a couple films that I was like, this sounds so much like these other movies. And of course, they do say in their notes that they were inspired a lot by Lawrence of Arabia. So it's worth your time for sure. I think everybody should watch it. I'm so glad of that one night talking about movies with my friend Mick, who was like, this movie is amazing. And if you've not seen it, you should. I'm a better person for it. I think all people would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So give it a watch. Maurice Jarre did the score, and the score is unbelievable. Yeah, to just echo what you just said there, Michaela ended up he won 3 Academy Awards for films, including Dr. Zhivago there. So yeah, it's good. Give it a watch. It's 4 hours. I mean, even if you just put it on and watch like the first half hour just to see the cinematography of those kind of establishing desert shots, do that. It's worth it. It's on HBO if you've got a subscription to that, or Max, or HBO Max, or whatever it's still called at the moment. So go and check it out and let us know what you thought about it. And let us know if you make a Blood and Sand, that classic cocktail. Let us know what you thought about that one too. Send us pictures and let us know if you have any tweaks on it or other favorite kind of cocktails from that classic Savoy cocktail book. We want to hear about all that stuff. So send all of your thoughts and pictures our way on social media. It's at Drink the Movies on Instagram and Twitter, and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to see pictures of ours, the written recipe, episode recaps, information on the Patreon, you can do that on our website, which is www.drinkthemovies.com. And speaking of Patreon, we just had our exclusive episode for the month of May just went out this past week. We were talking about Andor, the Star Wars series on Disney Plus. It was a really fun episode, a really fun couple of cocktails. So go check that out on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/drinkthemovies. A really great way to support the podcast if you feel so inclined, get some bonus content and stuff like that. But keep an eye on the main show, Michaela. That's where all the good stuff happens. Next week we're talking about Little Mermaid. We got the Lobby Bar coming, 2 drops a week. Where can they find that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Good Pods, Nearpods, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are distributed and listenable. Anything, if whatever you're listening to right now, I bet there's a subscribe button. So if you're not driving, look down at your phone, press the subscribe button. If you're liking what you're hearing, tell your friends, leave us a review on whatever platform you have. It really helps us get more Drink the Movie stuff out there. And we're really excited. We have a lot of people coming in telling us about their favorite films. And some of it's like this, where it's stuff we've never seen before. So we wouldn't be able to do all of that without you. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks indeed. So that's going to wrap it up for Lawrence of Arabia. It's a film that's been long overdue for us to talk about, for us to see for sure. But now, check mark. The bucket list of films has been taken down another notch. So thank you for that. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Lawrence of Arabia. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of you. And we'll talk to you all next time on
Drink the
Movies. The Sun's Anvil. It's not where I want to be.
No, Dryden, it's going to be fun.
There's water over there, I hope.